classifies as Instagram now? Is it because chat GBT psychosis? Hello! Megan is here. Alright. Facebook is on. Instagram is on. We will wait a second. And then we'll get started. Hi, how are you? What are you doing? Just hanging out on a... What day is it over there? Wednesday night? I almost couldn't even remember what day it was over here. Just creeping for a bit while I take a break from editing. Good call. Always good call to take a break from editing. My brain would explode with editing. Okay. Let's press start and let's get going. Alright, hello and welcome to today's video where we're going to be talking about finding safety. And I want to talk about this because in our world of self-help, spirituality, personal growth, self-improvement, there are a lot of teachers out there who are teaching that we can feel safe and find safety by just regulating ourselves 24/7. And if we just do the right regulation practices or thought work practices, that we can always get ourselves into a state of feeling safe and feeling grounded and feeling regulated and moving through life. And there are self-help gurus, psychologists, pop psychologists out there who say things like, right, like you're in a trauma response. That's always like when you're having anxiety or when you're having fear or when you're not in a place where you feel safe, that's all like past stuff. It's a trauma response and you just need to like think your way out of it, or you're safe now and everything's fine and you just need to realize that you're safe now. And a lot of this stuff can be helpful when and where it's actually true. And then in a lot of ways, it can also be very gaslighting, and it can be tools that we're using in essentially to gaslight ourselves into believing we are safe, into believing we should be able to feel regulated and calm when there are legitimate things that are going on in our life that make us feel unsafe. And I also think, right, this over-diagnosis of everything is sourced from trauma is a big problem, because some stuff isn't. Sometimes we are feeling things and we are having anxiety, or we are having emotions, we are having fear because our intuition is going off, or we are sensing that something is coming that isn't in alignment, or right, we're in relationships where people aren't saying what they actually mean and they're not saying what they actually intend, and we're like picking up on that. So I just think that we don't want to oversimplify this idea that we should all be able to just feel safe and regulated all the time, and that is the goal, and that if you don't feel that way, that you should be able to just think your way into that. And I don't like this idea that all anxiety or all fear is just a trauma response, because again, a lot of the time it absolutely isn't. And trying to fix it from a place of saying that I'm just experiencing a trauma response and everything is because of something from the past isn't reality, okay? So I want to talk about finding safety in a more nuanced, complex way, so that it can actually be helpful and we're not just gaslighting ourselves, we're not letting the internet gaslight us, and most importantly, so that we can figure out the difference between the times when we really are freaking out about something that isn't happening or isn't true and we are okay, and the times when we really aren't okay and we do need to make an adjustment, okay? Because this exists. There are times and places where we don't feel safe because we aren't. And learning to be able to validate that and being able to see it, and then being able to step into the power that we do have to change things, to fix things, to make them different, to look for resources and help and all of these things is the actual solution, right? It's not about just thinking your way into believing that you're safe when you're not. Okay? So this is what I want to talk about today is the complex, nuanced understanding of finding safety and what that actually looks like and what that actually means when we are looking at real reality. Okay? So first things first, as I just kind of said, not everything that we experience in life is a trauma response. Not everything that we feel in life is because of some past thing that happened to us that we're just re-experiencing now. That is a myth, okay? Social media has learned about trauma. Social media has learned about trauma response. Social media has learned about getting into a flashback and CPTSD and neurodivergence and all of this stuff, and then it's taken it and it's applied it to everything. And this, again, is not reality. Sometimes we are experiencing a trauma response. Sometimes we are experiencing legitimate unsafety in our current reality, and our trauma response is making it worse. You see? Sometimes the way we are thinking about things is disempowering us. Sometimes we do need to regulate, and in that regulation, we will find steps and solutions. Not necessarily the regulation itself will make us feel better. There is a nuanced conversation to be had here. And so we don't want to oversimplify everything as just being a trauma response. And if you are feeling unsafe, you need to just gaslight yourself into believing you're safe. That is not reality. Okay? That's the very first thing. So, when you are experiencing anxiety, when you are experiencing fear, when you are having that time, those times where you are catastrophizing about everything, the very first step that we want to take is not to try to calm ourselves down, not to try to figure out how this is just a trauma response. We don't want to gaslight ourselves. We don't even want to move into regulation practices. Okay? The very first thing that we actually want to do that's going to be helpful and empowering is to acknowledge that we're freaking out, to acknowledge that we're scared, to acknowledge that we don't feel safe, and to validate that there is some good reason why we feel that way. Okay, now remember, validating yourself is not the same thing as saying, I'm definitely right about this, I'm absolutely seeing it clearly, this is real reality, and what I'm feeling is completely in alignment with truth, right? Especially when we're catastrophizing, especially when we're in deep cycles of shame and feeling like there's something wrong with us and we're bad and we're wrong and we fucked up and our whole life is gonna spiral out of control now because we did something wrong, like stuff like this. When we're catastrophizing, when our minds are running away with us, when we're really scared and we're panicking and we're looking at the things in our lives and we have no idea how we're gonna handle it, the very first step is to validate that there's a reason we don't feel good. And it's not because we're broken. It's not because we're just not trying hard enough to regulate. It's not necessarily because the things we're thinking are true. Okay? Validating yourself is not the same thing as agreeing that you're seeing it clearly. Rather, it's making yourself feel safe, accepted, and loved within what you're feeling. Okay? That's what validation does. It doesn't say you're absolutely right. Right? Catastrophic thinking correct. You're not saying my life is actually spiraling out of control and I have no resources and everything is falling apart and there's nothing I can do about it. You're saying I feel that way right now. Okay? Especially when we are in a situation where the anxiety, the fear, the panic, we kind of look around and we're like, okay, I don't have an obvious reason to be feeling that way. There isn't something that's like happening in my immediate environment that would be an obvious thing to trigger me or to make me feel scared or to activate my fear response. Because again, sometimes we are responding to something, the body is responding to something that the mind hasn't caught up to yet. And so if we just totally invalidate ourselves and tell ourselves, well, there's nothing going on, so you just need to calm down, we might miss a message. Because again, the body is picking up on things that the mind is not always picking up on. Sometimes we are nervous and scared and feel uncomfortable for a reason, and it's not apparent to the logical mind. But if we start to tune in, we'll be like, whoa, no, that's my intuition talking to me. That's my body talking to me. There is something weird going on here. Okay? So we validate as the first step. And this actually, you will notice when you practice it, will, to a degree, de-escalate the fear and the panic. Feeling like we're not being told that we're wrong. Feeling like we're not being told we should feel a different way. Feeling like we're not telling ourselves, okay, you're feeling this way and also you're shitty because you're not regulating enough. You're not doing good enough at calming yourself. All of those things, or I have no reason to be feeling this way, just stop it. When we don't respond to ourselves like that, and instead we do just say, no, I'm feeling something. It's there for a reason. Maybe it's a trauma response. Maybe it's from the past. Maybe it's a trigger. Maybe I'm blowing it out of proportion. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know. But I know that I'm feeling something right now. And that does not make me bad. That does not make me wrong. That does not make me broken. And I have compassion for myself that I'm feeling shitty. It takes us out of resistance to what we're feeling, and out of resistance to ourselves. And this, like I said, will start to de-escalate the situation in and of itself. So just that first step, right? This is that thing that most of us never got in our childhoods. This is what most of us never got from our caregivers or other authority figures in our lives. See you later, Megan. We never got validated. We never had someone just kind of like crouch down, look us in the eye, and say, oh, I'm noticing that you're feeling scared. I see that you're scared. I'm here with you. It's okay that you're scared. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. Okay? I can see that you're scared and that's okay. I'm here with you. That's what we're learning to do for ourselves when we validate. So next time you're feeling scared, start with validating yourself, validating that you're scared, understanding that you likely have a reason to feel scared. You're not just making it up. And then be kind to yourself, right? Don't tell yourself I shouldn't feel this way. Don't tell yourself you're broken. And don't tell yourself that everything that you're thinking is absolutely true and you need to act on every little thing. We take that bubble, we take that moment to have some awareness, to pause ourselves, to not act. And all of this is very, very helpful. Okay? Because again, if we're in a situation where we really actually need to be acting right now, right? Where the fear is there because there's an actual emergency that we need to take care of, right here, right now, we'll know. You won't wonder, is this something I need to be acting on right now? It will be your house is on fire. It will be someone has entered into your home who shouldn't be there. It will be obvious, right? Medical emergency. There's something going on with your body, like right now. These are the situations where the fear and acting as quickly as possible are required. You don't wonder if you need to be acting right now in a real situation where you need to be acting right now. When you need to be acting right now, when it is actually urgent, it is obvious that it is urgent. Okay, so this is the second thing. Is we start to de-escalate from the idea that everything that we're feeling and all of our fear and all of our anxiety and all of our catastrophizing is happening right now, and if we don't act right now, the world is going to fall apart. Right? So we observe that we're feeling shitty. We validate ourselves and we're kind to ourselves. And then we give ourselves a minute to say, is this really an urgent thing that needs to be taken care of? Like, I need to act right now. Whatever my head is telling me I need to do about this is what I need to do, and I need to do it right now. And if the answer is, I don't know, maybe not, then likely the answer is no. Okay? When we need to act immediately, when our fear is really that intense and that responsive to what is happening, you don't wonder if you need to act right now. It is completely obvious that you need to act right now. Okay? So, second step of de-escalation is realizing we probably have time. We probably don't need to act on this right now. Our mind is telling us, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, do something about this right now. We're uncomfortable, make it stop. Just do the thing. And that is when we usually are going to go into habits and patterns that don't help us get really clear and aware of what's actually happening and why we're feeling the way that we're feeling and what is actually going to help us feel better. That's when we go into coping mechanisms and coping strategies and, like I say, repetitious behavior and repetitious thoughts that might not be in alignment with real reality. We haven't taken the time to figure out if what we're thinking or feeling is actually true to real reality. We haven't taken the time to investigate into what's really going on. Our minds have a story, and generally speaking, right? So now we're talking about if we are repeatedly in a place where we are catastrophizing and having anxious thoughts and anxious feelings and fearful thoughts and feeling unsafe about the same stuff over and over and over again, and then we notice that we take the same actions over and over and over again, and it doesn't ever seem to actually fix the problem or help us figure out what's really going on, and we're just in these cycles of feeling fear and then reacting and feeling fear and reacting and feeling fear and reacting. That is why we come to this wait, this might not be urgent recognition, because we want to start to pattern interrupt ourselves. And it is the hardest thing to do. That's why we validate first. That's why we tell ourselves, you're not crazy. This isn't just a lack of regulation. You're not doing a bad job. You're not a bad person. It's not necessarily that what you're thinking is actually true, even though it feels really true in the moment, probably. It's I validate myself that I have a reason that I'm feeling how I'm feeling. It might be trauma, it might be trigger, it might be true, it might be a combination of both. But what I have done in the past, I can see hasn't worked. I'm in a cycle of catastrophizing, a cycle of fear, a cycle of seeing everything as the ultimate end of the world. I feel out of control a lot. This is where we want to start to say, okay, second step. This might not be as urgent as I think it is. Right? And a lot of us, again, I was one of these people. Where it's like, as soon as I felt uncomfortable, as soon as I felt scared, as soon as I felt like there was something that wasn't being said in a relationship, or I'm picking up on something that someone is feeling, and there was this sense that we need to have this conversation right now. We need to address this right now. We need to fix it right now. We need to deal with it right now. It was just trigger, action, trigger, action, trigger, action. And what we have to recognize about that is that the mind cannot tell the difference between something that actually happened in real reality and something we just think happened. The body perceives what the mind is believing, and the body is recording it as though it's happening the way our mind is saying that it is, even in times when that's not really what's happening in real life. So when we are acting from trigger, and we are acting from a place of seeing reality incorrectly, we have to understand that every time we act on that impulse, we are convincing our bodies that something terrible just happened, that we were unsafe, that we almost died, even when we didn't. You see? If we almost get into a car accident, but our mind paints this picture of us actually getting into a car accident and what that would have been like, and we feel that in our bodies, and then we respond as though that's what happened, the mind and the body record that that's what happened. So now the next time you get into a car, you're going to have fear of a thing that didn't even happen. Because your body is like, well, last time we were in a car, we got in a big car accident. Even though you didn't. So what I am trying to say here is this. When we are acting from a place of trigger, when we don't think through, why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? What is actually causing this panic? What is causing this fear? What is the actual solution? And we just continue to act on our impulse, right? I'm convinced that this person hates me, and so I need to fawn. Because if I don't fawn, I'm going to be rejected forever, and everyone's going to hate me, and I'll die. Or, right, I feel insecure, so I go on a diet. That's the answer. I restrict my calories, I do whatever. Or I feel uncomfortable and I feel anxiety, and I go and I have a big explosive conversation. And I blame everyone for everything. And then you feel that release, right? You feel like you did something. You fought, you fawned, you fled. Your body thinks you just saved your life. Do you understand? Your body will literally read that as, okay, we were right. That emergency was happening. You did a thing. you didn't die. So that's now what we have to do next time. So now every time you feel this fear, every time you feel anxiety, every time you feel like you're not safe, the stories you tell yourself in your head, your body is going to be like, yep, that's exactly true. That's exactly right. And then you're going to do what you've always done. You're going to feel like you solved it. Because your body then says, well, we didn't die. We were absolutely facing that threat. We did X thing. And we didn't die. So that was right. And that's how we get ourselves stuck in loops that don't actually serve us. Does this make sense? This is how we get stuck in coping mechanisms instead of actually feeling and figuring out what's really going on and why we're feeling how we're feeling and what needs to be done and where our real power is. Because most of the time, those automatic responses are not in alignment with reality. When we feel fear and we are triggered, the last thing we want to do is move from our automatic response. Because unless we know for a fact that we are 100% right about reality, because we've taken the time to investigate it. Okay, so I'm going to put that caveat in there. Because you've taken the time to investigate. You know you're either in one of those, I'm in an actual emergency situation, something is on fire, someone is breaking into my house, my body is breaking down right now, unless you're in a situation where it is blatantly obvious that you need to act right now. And unless your repetitious fear, the repetitious things we catastrophize about, right? So now we're talking about when we don't feel safe because of stories that go on in our head repeatedly, but we never seem to get on top of it. We are taking action, we are acting from trigger, we are acting from what we always do to try to solve that feeling that we get. But that feeling just keeps coming back, just keeps coming back, just keeps coming back. And we keep feeling out of control, and then we do the thing, and we feel relief for a second, and then we feel it again, and then we feel relief for a second, and then it comes back, and we're just in this cycle of fear and response, fear, response, fear, response, fear, response. Fear, project it, fear, project it. That's where we want to stop. Okay, so we validate ourselves, and then we check in. Is this an actual emergency where I need to act right now? And if not, we use that awareness to help us say, okay, I'm going to take a minute to actually explore this versus acting from my thing that I always do, right? So we acknowledge, I'm convinced that this person hates me, and that's exactly what's happening, and if I don't go and fix it right now, everything is going to fall apart. I'm convinced that someone's mad at me, and that just seems completely obvious and completely true to me, and if I don't go and hate myself and shame myself and figure out what I did wrong so I can do different next time, the world is going to crumble. Something happened. I feel like someone doesn't love me, or someone's abandoning me, or I'm going to lose someone. Like, we're in the same fear cycles. My body isn't right. I look ugly. I have to fix it. This is not how I'm supposed to look. I don't have enough money. 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 I'm in the wrong career. I'm doing the career wrong. Right? These cyclical fears that we just impulsively act on over and over again, this is where we want to stop and say, okay, this is probably, at least in part, a trauma response. This is probably, at least in part, me not seeing my real power and how I actually have control more than I think that I do. This is where I need to step out of my childhood conditioning, out of my childhood perception, out of my automatic responses, because it's not addressing the real issue. Okay? So we want to start to see where we have cyclical thought patterns, cyclical triggers, cyclical fears, that we do the same thing to address. We get triggered, we do this. We get triggered, we do this. We get triggered, we do this. And it just seems so true and so real. We have to remember that the reason it feels true is because it feels familiar. We've thought this thought a million times. We've gone down this path a million times. We've tried to cope and save ourselves with this action a million times. It's familiar. That does not make it true. What is familiar is not always true. So this is like a huge thing that I work on with people in coaching. As I say, like, does that thought feel true? Everyone hates me. My body is the reason no one loves me. I'm losing everyone and I'm losing everything and I'll never be okay. Life is just constantly falling apart and there's nothing I can do about it. I'll say, how does that thought feel? And people go, it feels true. And what I say is this: a true thought, even a true thought that is objectively hard, painful, not what we want, right? Like someone we love really truly is going to pass away. We really actually do have pain in our bodies and chronic illness or whatever, right? Even when we come to the realization of something that is true and not like, oh yeah, that's so blissful, I love that I recognize that. There's going to be a sense of groundedness when what we're thinking is true. Because when we are in alignment with what is true, when our minds are seeing what is actually true, and we're not adding stories on top of it, we're not making it mean a whole bunch of things it doesn't mean, that is where we are going to be able to find our power to deal with it. Okay, so if you're wanting to skip to the end, the real thing that makes us feel safe is not living in a world that's fully stable, where we never lose anybody, where no one's ever mad at us again, where we have perfect financial security, where our bodies never get sick again, where nothing can happen to make us sick, to make us hurt, to make us alone. That is not what makes us feel secure and safe. Because in this life, on this planet, that will never happen. Perfect safety doesn't exist. We cannot fix ourselves or nitpick life enough to make everything safe. This is where most of us live in anxiety perpetually, because we're trying to control what we cannot control. We're trying to create a situation that can never be created. We are striving for perfect safety. And we are catastrophizing about every horrible thing that could happen to try to get out ahead of it. And therefore, we're not in the present moment. We're not in the power that we actually have. And we're not in real reality. We're in a fantasy in our minds. But that fantasy feels so true because, again, the mind can't tell the difference, as in the body can't tell the difference between something you're imagining is happening to you and something that's actually happening to you. Do you see? So when you convince yourself that someone is mad at you, and that them being mad at you means they're going to take their love away, and then the security that you have is going to go away, and then you're going to be alone and on the street forever, right? You're not even consciously thinking all these thoughts, but this is what your body is registering. Someone got mad at you, and then your whole life fell apart. Your body literally registers that as being what happened, even when it didn't happen, when we're catastrophizing. Do you see? You may not even be consciously aware of what you're making things mean, but that story is so programmed into your mind that if I lose someone, or if someone's mad at me, or if my body is wrong, or whatever, that I'm not going to be okay. I can't figure it out. I'm not an adult. I don't have the skills. If I'm abandoned, if I'm alone, if I'm not safe, if my body gets sick, I'm not going to be able to handle it. Your body registers that as being true. And then, like I say, you take your compulsive action of trying to fix yourself, shaming yourself, blaming yourself, fawning, freaking out, trying to get them to like you again, having the big explosive conversation, putting up the boundaries and the walls where you don't need to, not communicating, dieting, doing all of these things that we do from that place of trigger, looking for another job, trying to figure out what your perfect career is, trying to find security, scrambling for that security. You get that hit that you did something. Your body registers that that saved your life. And then you just keep repeating the pattern. But you never feel empowered, and you never feel good, and you never feel safe. Not because the world is just perpetually unsafe, because that is a reality that will always exist. You never feel safe because you're not in reality. You're believing stories that aren't true. You're acting on stories that aren't true. And therefore, you're not empowering yourself. You're not helping yourself. You're not getting anywhere. You're not addressing the real issue. You see? It's like you're in a canoe, and the canoe has a hole in the bottom, and that's why it's filling with water. And you keep building up the sides because you keep thinking, well, the water's coming in from over the sides. So the canoe just keeps filling. You're taking action over and over and over again. You're building up the sides of that wall. Right? And every time you do it, you feel like, good, okay, I'm going to be safe. And then the water fills up more. And then you're like, okay, well, it needs to be higher. And then the water fills up more. And then the water needs... That is what's happening when we're not taking time to figure out where our trigger is coming from and what's really going on. And that's why we perpetuate our own fear. We perpetuate our own anxieties. We perpetuate our own catastrophizing. Because we're not taking the time to figure out if what we're seeing and how we're responding is in alignment with real reality or not. Do you see? We're not dealing with the real issue. So this is why I say, when we have a true thought, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's painful, there is going to be a sense of empowerment in it, because it helps us recognize what's actually happening, which is the first step to figuring out what we can do about it. And that is what makes us feel safe. The recognition that we can figure things out and we can handle them. That when we are in alignment with real reality, there will always be some step, some power that we have to help ourselves or to improve the situation or to take a step in the right direction, to start healing, to start making things better, or even to just adjust our mindsets to accept the things we cannot change, and then to meet our needs within that situation the best that we can. So, we want to stop ourselves when we see that we're doing the same patterns over and over again in response to our fear. So we're not invalidating ourselves. We are checking in to see, is my fear completely legitimate and I need to act on it right here, right now? It's an actual emergency and I really do need to act. I don't have time to think. And then if it's not that, and we start to recognize that this is a cyclical fear that we're having over and over and over again, and we have the same response over and over and over again, and it all just seems so true and real to us, that's when we need to take a step back and be like, okay, whoa, I need to question my thoughts. I need to investigate into my shame, blame, and guilt stories. So where I'm telling myself that my pain that I'm in, the fear that I'm having, the panic that's coming up is because there's something wrong with me. That's the first step in the questioning process. Where am I assuming that my pain, my discomfort, my fear is because I'm bad, wrong, shameful, guilty, not good enough? Because I promise you that that is always out of alignment with real reality. There is nothing that could be fundamentally wrong with you enough that this is the reason you are suffering. Okay? A lot of us have these stories of just like, I'm just here to suffer. God has cursed me. I am fundamentally unworthy of love and that's why everyone rejects me. I will never be safe and I will never be loved because I suck. My body is the wrong size. My face is the wrong shape. I need to get cosmetic surgery. I need to fix myself. I need to change the way that my personality is. We want to start to investigate where these shame, blame, and guilt stories are coming from. I'm not successful enough. I'm not trying hard enough. I'm not reaching my potential. I'm missing out on who I should be. And then we need to start to say, okay, that is me wanting approval. That is coming from a wounded inner child that didn't get their needs met, that was not made safe. And I learned to see myself as the problem. Okay, because when we grow up without a secure connection, when we grow up and we don't feel unconditionally loved by our caregivers, and we don't feel like they're gonna generally provide for us, we don't learn to hate our caregivers. We don't learn to blame our caregivers. The child brain says, I am doing something wrong. This is the reason this is happening. I am not safe because I'm not connected to my caregiver, my source of all things. And that is happening because of something wrong with me. And then that becomes our foundational belief of who we are. I'm a child who cannot provide for myself. I can't protect myself. I can't help myself when I'm scared. When something bad is happening, I am helpless. And the only way to get out of this situation is to be saved by someone outside of me. And if I'm not being saved by someone outside of me, it's because there's something wrong with me. I'm acting wrong, I look wrong, I'm doing things wrong. And then that's when we go into self-sabotage. That's when we go into shame, blame, and guilt. That's when we go into fixing ourselves. And that's when we go into reacting. That's actually a childhood trauma response. We're not responding to what's actually happening, and we're not responding from our adult capacity. We're responding from a child trigger. So this is when it really is a child trigger. And again, sometimes what's happening to us is we really are being abandoned or rejected by somebody. Sometimes our bodies really are in pain and we don't know how to fix it. So it's not to say that the thing that we're scared of happening isn't happening and it's just a trauma response, as I was saying at the beginning. What the trauma response is I don't have power. I don't have the capacity to deal with this. The reason this is happening is because I'm shitty. And I need to figure out how to make myself more pleasing so that somebody will come and take my pain away. That's the disempowerment cycle. When we go into shame, blame, and guilt when we are in pain, that's the childhood coping mechanism saying you're in pain because your caregivers aren't taking care of you. And they're not taking care of you because there's something wrong with you. So fix yourself and then this pain will go away. That's not the solution. That's not real. We want to come into our adult perspective so we can actually assess the situation for how it is and then move from our adult perspective for where we have power and where we can make things better. So that's where the trigger versus actual reality comes in. So we need to look at the thing I'm afraid of, the catastrophizing story I'm creating. We follow the fear all the way through. What am I making this mean? Where is the shame, blame, and guilt story that's fueling this? Where am I making this a problem with me instead of addressing the real problem? Do you see what I'm saying? So if it's not that you're fundamentally fucked up, if it's not that you're broken, if it's not that you're just not good enough, if it's not that someone is mad at you and now you're going to die, what are you actually feeling? What are you actually afraid of? Right? I'm afraid I'm going to be alone and I won't be okay. I'm afraid I'm going to be in pain and I won't know how to figure it out. I'm afraid that something terrible is happening or is going to happen and I won't be able to handle it. That's really what's at the root of most of our fears. We don't know how to step into our adult perspective, which is, can I address what's actually going on? So again, if we unpack our shame, blame, and guilt, that's when we can start to say, okay, I'm feeling like this person is rejecting me or mad at me or doesn't like me. And instead of fawning or hiding or doing our coping mechanism, we can take a step back and we can be like, okay, wait, hold on. I'm an adult. If this person abandons me or hates me or is mad at me, I'm not going to die. The fear that I have in my head that if I'm not loved by everyone, I'm not safe and I'm not secure. If people don't understand me, if people can't see me, if they can't validate me, I am invalid. I am unseen. My experience doesn't matter. I can't provide for myself. This is my only source. That's where we need to start to say, okay, hold on. That's never how real reality works. Now that I'm an adult, I can be rejected and I can be okay. I can anger somebody And I can see that we can repair it, right? It's not the end of the world. If somebody's upset with me, we can have a talk about it. It doesn't mean they're going to abandon me or reject me forever. And even if they did, I would figure it out. There would be some other way of me getting my needs met. It might be hard. It might not be what I want. But I'm not going to die. And there are other people in the world that can help me and support me, even if it's not perfect help or perfect support. This is not my only source. You see, we start to say, okay, if my body isn't perfect, that doesn't necessarily mean that no one will ever love me and I'll be alone forever. In fact, most people's bodies are imperfect and they have love. This trigger that I'm having inside of myself, right? I'm feeling unsafe. I'm feeling rejected. It's not really even about my body. It's just my body is that thing I thought I could take control over when I felt out of control when I was in my childhood. Maybe I'm doing my coping mechanism, right? I'm drinking, I'm eating, I'm doing something to escape reality. What is it that I'm running away from? That I'm afraid is happening that I can't handle? And is that really true? And then when we're catastrophizing, the biggest thing we need to always ask ourselves is that actually happening right now? Is that actually happening right now? And if it's not actually happening right now, we need to recognize that our power is not in trying to think about everything that could possibly happen and get all prepared and out ahead of it. The best thing we can actually do is come back to what is actually happening right now. And then taking whatever steps we have in this moment to set ourselves up for a better future. Right? So when we're catastrophizing, I'm not going to have enough money, I'm going to die alone, my body's going to completely fall apart, all of that stuff. If it's not actually happening right here, right now, that doesn't mean we ignore it. It means we come back to right now and we say, okay, where is my power right now? Can I pay my rent this month? Is the roof still over my head? Do I have security to the degree that I can create it? Where can I support my body a little bit better? Am I doing all the things that I'm capable of doing right here, right now, today to take care of my health the best that I can? That is actual empowerment and getting your needs met. Is meeting yourself where you are right now and doing what you can do right now. And then letting that be enough. Right? Knowing there will never be perfect security. This is often what we need to tell ourselves. There is never going to be perfect safety. There is never going to be perfect security. There is never going to be perfect love. There is never going to be perfect provision. So am I doing everything that I can in this moment to make myself as safe as I can? And then can I continue to remind myself that I'm an adult who can figure things out? I am not a child who is completely dependent on everyone else around me loving me and then saving me from myself. I am an adult and I can figure things out. When life is hard, I can figure it out. When life is confusing, I can figure it out. And so long as I'm coming back into the present moment and then taking the steps that I can take in the moment. I'm doing everything that I can. When I'm lost in my head and I'm lost in my trigger and I'm lost in my stories, that's when I'm most disempowered, because I'm not dealing with reality. And when we don't deal with reality, we're not empowered. This is what we need to realize. The real thing that empowers us is coming back to what's actually happening, finding our steps that we can take right now, seeing what's really true and what's really happening right now versus the stories we're telling ourselves. Coming into a place of self-love and realizing I'm an adult. People can hate me and not like me and not understand me, and I can be okay. I can figure things out when things are hard. Nothing is secure, but everything is figure-outable. There will always be some step that I can take. And then you just stay in the moment you're in, right? So we don't deal with, what if someone's gonna die? What if all these things I'm seeing are gonna happen? But if they're not happening right now, again, what can you do to prepare yourself the best you can? And then how can you live your life and show yourself that you're an adult right now and you're okay? Can you feed yourself? Can you see that there's a roof over your head? Can you see that there are people around you who love you? Can you see that you are handling it? Can you see that you don't need to sacrifice yourself for everybody? Because the reality is, being loved isn't the way to be safe. The way to be safe is to step into your adult capacity and do what you can. We rely on other people sometimes, but not all the time. Okay? So it's a deeper investigation. Where is your real power right now? What is actually happening right now? What do you need in this moment? Just take care of your moment. Take care of your today. And sometimes, again, what you can do today is planning for the future, right? You could say, well, maybe I can save that $100 instead of spending it on jeans. Okay, you can do that today. And if you just do that over and over and over and over time, just do what you can each day to set yourself up for future success, you're taking your power. So what's actually happening right now? We come out of shame, blame, and guilt. Your pain is not because you suck, or because you're cursed, or because there's something wrong with you. What are you actually afraid of? Is that actually happening right now? And if you come into your adult perspective, where is your real power in this moment with what's actually happening right now? That's how we find safety. It's a slow progress over time. We can't make ourselves perfect enough, and we can't make the world perfect enough to be safe. We can learn that we can handle it as it comes, the more we make ourselves present. We can deal with the things that are actually happening. We don't pretend like nothing's happening all the time, right? We may actually be in a fight. We may really do need to address something in our health or address something in our work. But we need to come into what's actually happening right now in order to figure that out. We can't be in catastrophe story. So what is actually happening right now? What needs to be addressed right now? Can you take your step right now? And that's how you prove to yourself that you're an adult and you're okay. So when you get scared, you catastrophize less. You come into reality more. You take your adult steps more. You feel less out of control. And then it becomes a positive feedback loop. Okay? So hopefully that was helpful. And if this doesn't help and it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't help when it doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to everybody all the time. But generally speaking, this is something that we can practice and see if it helps. Okay? So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you later.